You know when they make a Dr. Seuss movie off of a book that's like 12 pages long and 75% is just a bunch of bullshit that they added? That's kind of what this feels like.
Let's just say I'm Frankenstein's monster.
Say it out loud.
Frankenstein!
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
My name, it's pronounced Frankenstein.
Welcome back, everybody, to Franken-Fridays, the show where every Friday that I feel like talk about another Frankenstein movie, covering every adaptation from Del Toro's Frankenstein to Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride. Today's episode, Frankenweenie from Timothy Burton. This is kind of an interesting one. Tim Burton has this weird deal with Disney. I guess because his terrible Alice in Wonderland made $1 billion and broke Disney's brain, because after that they're like, we gotta make live action remakes. That's the key to all of this. So thanks, Tim. But he's had like some hits and some movies that I think are pretty good. I think Ed Wood is fantastic. I like the original Edward Scissorhands. Everyone's favorite Tim Burton movie is Nightmare Before Christmas, which isn't even directed by him. So I don't know. Kind of a mixed bag of a director, but Disney lets him make weird, dark, sometimes scary shit for kids, and I think there's something fun to that. However, the whole time I was watching this, I was just basically thinking, man, this would be so cool if it was a Laika movie. Man, I sure wish I was watching Coraline or Paranorman. Animation's great. It's stop motion. I like the black and white aesthetic. I think it's fun. Some of the character designs are great. I just don't give a shit about pretty much any of the characters in this, which is not something I can say about Paranorman, Coraline, Kubo. I think all the main protagonists of Laika's filmography are wonderful and fascinating and interesting protagonists. The main character of this is Victor Frankenstein, and he's boring as shit. How did you make Victor Frankenstein a boring character? I think part of the problem with this one is that like every other character is weird and strange in some way. So that makes Victor, the main guy, seem kind of boring and tame by comparison. He just has like no personality compared to anyone else. And even then, most other characters are just like, they're this weird thing and that's the joke. And you're like, all right. Strangely, this is based on a short film from like the 80s, also directed by Tim Burton, though in live action. Same exact concept. And it kind of works way better as a short. So I recommend you check that out. It's on Disney+. It's got Shelley Duvall in it, and the non-Joe Pesci burglar from Home Alone. And I think the original short is pretty good. It does pretty much everything you need to with this concept, and then it manages to work in the burning windmill from the 30s movie with a golf course windmill inspired. Brilliant. This movie takes basically the same premise and then stretches it out to 90 minutes. It feels kind of like, you know when they make a Dr. Seuss movie off of a book that's like 12 pages long, and the animated shorts are like 20 minutes, and even those are stretching the amount of material to adapt, and then Jim Carrey's like jumping around for an hour and a half, and like 75% is just a bunch of bullshit that they added. That's kind of what this feels like, where the main bulk of the story is like not that long, so you kind of have to add all this extra shit to reach the length of 90 minutes. So Dr. Frankenweenie makes his dog come back to life. Also, this is, okay, Frankenweenie, that's not a wiener dog, right? Like that's a Toy Story dog. That's a different kind of dog. Why is it called Frankenweenie? Am I crazy? That's not a wiener dog. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Okay, so whatever. He makes the dog come back to life, and then he's like trying to hide it or whatever. There's a bunch of random stuff that happens. But then things go crazy when all the other kids in the neighborhood realize that you can bring pets back to life, and so they start doing weird experiments with lightning, and we get a bunch of crazy monster pets. And this stuff I thought was pretty fun. There's some fun and kind of scary monster designs. Got like weird vampire bat, cat creature, Gremlins 2 ass motherfucker. You got some sea monkeys that are also just gremlins. And you got giant Gamera turtle that the Japanese kid makes. Because, get it? Giant monster, Japan, 50s. That's the other thing about this. This one more so than some other Tim Burton stuff. Tim Burton is obviously like very influenced from like classic gothic horror and B movies from the like 50s and 60s and stuff. A lot of his stuff is either like a direct homage to some of that era of horror and gothic things, or direct adaptations or remakes. This is obviously a reimagining of the Frankenstein movies from the 30s and 40s, but it also takes place in the 50s, so you got like nuclear family aesthetic, B-movie stuff going on. There's a reference to Christopher Lee's Dracula in this, and Christopher Lee would go on to show up in a bunch of Tim Burton movies. You got a Gamera appearance, monster movie things, and like all that's fun, but it feels kind of like hollow to me. Like it's just like, hey, look, it's Gamera kind of, and it's not really like doing or saying anything new. I don't know. This one didn't really hit for me. Again, I will say I like some of the monster designs in the third act. I think some of the other creatures are fun, and it is kind of fun to see the Pandora's box of Frankenstein bringing a creature back to life be opened, and like the wider reaching consequences of that, because it's just all these kids like fucking around with science experiments, and things go awry and they create real monsters, where, you know, Frankenweenie the dog is relatively nice. He's just undead. That's something we actually don't ever really see in a Frankenstein story, at least none of the main ones that are at least kind of adapting Mary Shelley, is like, okay, this technology now exists. What are like the wider implications of that? What happens when someone else tries to create a monster? And I think that's kind of a fun concept. But other than that, I think this one is kind of whatever. And mostly it's just like, just watch Coraline, just watch Paranorman. You're gonna get way more out of it. Although, yes, I do appreciate stop motion. The animation's excellent. There's like little moments of interaction that I'm always like crazily impressed by. Like there's a moment where he like is riding his bike and then he dismounts, and I'm like, that's like such complicated little interactions there. How'd they do that? That's it. I think you can skip this one, watch the short film, and then go watch Paranorman, and you'll have a more complete experience. That's this episode. Coming soon, The Bride is coming out. We're gonna do a video about that, and then I'll do some kind of like ranking of all the Frankenstein movies we talked about. Leave a comment. Did I miss any Frankenstein movies? What other ones should I sneak in? There's still time. Is your favorite Frankenstein? Why do people like Tim Burton? Leave a comment. We'll find out. That's it. Bye-bye.